Hello, everyone. I'm back. I just wanted to start off the discussion today about the CF styles that we talked about during the first part of Module 7. I'm going to start off with 2 points that I just wanted to stress to you all when I was reading over you all's discussions online. And then I'm going to go into some of the insights and the questions that you all shared. And again, hopefully some of what's said within the video will just help you to reflect a little bit more, or maybe it's just confirming some of your thoughts from before. So whichever, I hope it's a little bit helpful. So the first two things that I thought about when I was reading over you all's discussion was that not all CF styles may be appropriate for every context, and that the qualities and strengths of some styles may be more appropriate in different situations. I saw the change facilitator styles as being more on a progressive continuum. So when you begin as a leader, I think many of us start off as a responder, and then you move into the manager, and then you move into becoming an initiator as you continue to learn and develop and experience what it's like to actually be a leader. And I think we have to keep in mind that Hall and Horde spoke about earlier this semester that change is learning. So as you're in the process of developing a leadership style, or continuing on in your leadership style, you're learning, and as you're learning, you're changing. I think this applies to an individual as well as a group or organization. That was the first point that I wanted to talk about. And the second thing was that for those who are not in leadership or not at top leadership, I wanted to encourage you all to never underestimate your ability to influence your leaders. Because many of you stated that you were dealing with leaders that were responders, or some of them were managers, and there may have been some frustration in that because you considered yourself to be either a manager or an initiator, and so you were saying that some of you were saying that you were a little frustrated with the leadership. So I just wanted to take the time to reiterate that on page 140, Hall and Horde did state that everyone who is part of the change process has the opportunity and some responsibility to help lead. So sometimes, and I think most times, for me personally, from my personal experience, excuse me, the best thing or the best practice for getting others to kind of think about and reflect on their own leadership style and practices is basically, as Keegan and Leahy said, to open your own kimono. So basically, all of the things that we've been learning in class, all the things that you've gathered, and it's helping you to develop your own leadership style or strengthen your leadership styles, then being able to take some of that literature back to your leaders and showing them in a way that's not necessarily pointing fingers, but kind of reflective. So you're openly reflecting to them, saying, this is what I've read. This is what has affected me. It's caused me to reflect and encouraged me to desire to become a stronger leader in this area. I think I'm this kind of leader, and you know, and this is what I gather from being this type of a leader, and I'm striving towards this, or I'd like to fine tune or refine this, and in doing so, I think you're showing your vulnerabilities, and then it's not necessarily reflecting upon them, excuse me, but it basically helps them to do the same kind of subconsciously. So again, this is the same technique that I used when I was assigning the immunity map. So being able to open my kimono first and let you all into a personal experience of mine, and then hopefully allowing you all to see that and trust a little bit more to reflect yourselves and open your kimono to me, which many of you, like I said, really did dig deep in that assignment, and it was awesome to be a part of that. So I thank you for sharing that with me, and for trusting me enough to share with me. And in return, again, you all, with digging so deep and trusting me to that extent, help to free me and liberate me to be even able to do these videos and share with you in a greater way. So I hope that even with that experience with the immunity maps, that all of you are taking some time to go back over them, possibly, and refine them, and reshape them and strengthen them, or even extending it into other parts of your life, and going through the practice of doing that to help all of us, because I'm planning to do that. Going through that practice will help all of us to reach the improvement goals that we desire. So now moving on to some of the questions and the insights that you all shared. And again, the whole purpose of me sharing this with you is because I know that you all are not able to necessarily go into other people's groups or the other section of the class um, and see what some of your colleagues were sharing. So I wanted to take the opportunity to share some of you all's insights and questions with each other. So one of the first questions that stood out to me was, how do you approach a responder leader about the possible improvements of their CF style without crossing the line? And so basically, when I read that, I automatically wrote a response. And so that's what I shared with you at the beginning of this video. How much of a CF style is in reaction to a participant's two participants or shaped by impending mushrooms? Do we adjust styles depending on our team? And I think that we definitely adjust our styles, or we should. And again, I read the CF styles as being on a continuum. So if you're starting from a responder and you're moving into a manager and you're moving into an initiator, in my opinion, the initiator does not necessarily lose the qualities of the manager and the responder. But the difference between the responder and the manager and the initiator is that the initiator is able to go back into his or her reservoir of knowledge, and depending upon the situation and the context, change their behavior, not necessarily their CF style, but their behavior to what is most appropriate for that particular context or that particular situation. So I definitely think that when we're dealing with intervention mushrooms, whether they be positive or negative, or if we're dealing with a certain team and whether they have immunities or they're supportive or what have you, it is necessary for us to go back and change our behavior so that it aligns more closely to maybe one of the other um, CF style. But again, that's a behavior, and it's not necessarily our complete CF style, as Hall and Horde actually explained. How to officially manage the nuts and bolts of leadership, such as paperwork and budgets, while ensuring the maintenance of mushrooms in the organization. So, again, that is a tough one. Um, and I think that sometimes the context in and of itself will restrict us from being able to progress from a responder to an initiator. I mean, to a manager to an initiator. So, for instance, if you have family at home and you have kids and you have a spouse, and or if maybe family is not the issue as far as taking the time and the energy to progress in the development of your leadership style. Maybe it's the context of the school, or maybe it's the context of the department that you're working in, or maybe it's the context of the company that you're working in and of itself can be hectic and chaotic, and the way that people interact with one another may, I believe, restrict our ability to be able to learn the things that we need to learn to develop into a stronger or more advanced leader. So I do think that that those things can possibly impede our development as leaders. So again, we could be so concentrated on the nuts and bolts that we don't necessarily have the time or the energy necessary to progress. A change. Some people, someone shared that they had a changed view of what an administrator is, because the 6 functions of interventions are actually usually delegated to other individuals. Um, and so they said, or individuals or groups. So they said that an administrator usually sets the vision, a change facilitator usually tracks and reports problems or progress, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully, credit is shared by everyone. I thought that was a good point. Um, Such detailed checklists and information on what is a good leader, what a good leadership requires. So we have this checklist. Why do not why don't we have better leaders? And I think a lot of that is exposure. Again, change is learning. And so if they don't have the opportunity and they don't have the access to the information that we're all privileged to share in this course, and other courses within the department, then um, maybe they are restricted from becoming the better leader that they desire to be. So, again, leadership is not all about the leader. You all have a lead role in changing also. So, if you reflect in your practices, and again, take some time to open your kimono with others, with other leaders, and with other leaders that may be above you in the organization, then maybe they will also have the time to reflect and seek to develop their leadership strategies a bit better as well. Another thing that I wanted to kind of tie together here is that some of you, actually, before I do that, some of you also talked about dividing your CF style into percentages of time focused on each in order to perform in a way that encompasses the strengths of all of the CF styles. So some of you actually stated that maybe it's good to be a 50% initiator, a 35% manager, and a 15% responder, or 70% initiator, 15% manager, 15% responder. And I think all of those ideas, again, are encompassing this progressive thought that I had as far as um, the leadership styles basically being on this progression, and that I believe an initiator should be able to go and pull from the reservoir of knowledge that they have about the manager style and the responder style, and when appropriate, be able to apply those characteristics to that specific situation or context as well. Um, so I don't know if we can necessarily argue that one style is better than another. That was another big question that was asked throughout the discussion. Is one style really better than another? I know that Holland Horton state that there are student outcomes and teacher outcomes or school outcomes that were basically connected to an initiator and a manager, that those two CF styles actually put out better results. However, like I said, my perspective is that all of the CF styles have some strengths, and then those strengths, I think as we progress in our leadership style, we should be able to go back and kind of pull from the strengths of each style. So that's my 2 cents. I also wanted to just take some time to put out there that this could be like a cyclical process in what we've been reading over the last month or so. So I see the CF styles as including the principles of change. So if you, wherever you are in your CF style progression, you would be better able to apply the principles of change, and that will, in effect, affect the 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 stages of concern. And so, the better you're able to present change and innovation, and the better you're capable of implementing them. On the higher end of those CF styles, then hopefully the less issues that we'll have with people and their concerns, and their immunities to the change in and of itself, because you should be able to address those things as you progress in your leadership. And again, those would also minimize the negative mushrooms, but then they would also encourage positive mushrooms. And when that happens, then the levels of usage will be higher. And the fidelity, I think, to the innovation will also be higher, which in effect creates a more effective innovation um, or implementation of an innovation. However, learning and the amount of systems thinking that is encouraged within a system actually actually encourages